Ever wonder how all those little snack pouches, like for chips, or those tiny travel-sized toiletries, how do they get made?
Hmm, interesting question.
Well, today we're going deep into the company that makes the machines that make those things. It's called Mamata Machinery,
Ah, yeah,
and they're going public.
they are an IPO. A lot of people want to know if it's worth a look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And thankfully, you sent over a ton of info on them. Financials, risk assessments, even stuff about their factory over in Gujarat.
We wanted to make sure we had all of the pieces of the puzzle. We really dug into it all.
You did. It was impressive. So our goal today is to try and give everyone listening a clear picture of what this company's about, their business model, how they make money.
How they're performing
Yeah,
and what they want to do in the future.
perfect. So let's just jump right in. What exactly does Mamata Machinery offer? Like, what do they actually make?
Their main focus is on machines that make those flexible plastic bags and pouches. You see them everywhere,
Everywhere, yeah.
like chips, shampoo sachets.
Oh, right, those little single-use things.
Exactly, even those tiny ketchup packets.
Oh, those are the worst.
You get ketchup all over your fingers.
Every time.
But anyway, yeah, so tied to the food and beverage industry for sure.
Big time.
Yep.
Are there any, big-name clients they work with?
Absolutely. They've got Balaji Wafers,
Okay.
Chitail Foods, but it goes beyond just food.
Oh, really?
Think like FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, personal care stuff, all the household products,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
even e-commerce packaging and garment bags.
So it's not just making machines for one type of company, it's multiple industries.
Exactly. They cater to both major consumer brands and then also those converters who supply them with all the packaging materials.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it's a really good strategy. It diversifies their customer base quite a bit.
For sure. Now, their revenue comes from inside India and outside, right?
You got it. And a pretty big chunk of it comes from international sales. So these machines are operating globally,
Wow.
which is always a good sign. Shows their reach.
That global presence is really interesting. Okay, let's move on to their numbers. What's the story there? How are they doing financially?
Well, their revenue growth over the past few years has been honestly pretty impressive. Just to give you a specific number,
Okay.
their revenue from operations back in fiscal year 2022 was 1,922.47 million rupees, and then it jumped to 2,008.65 million rupees in 2023.
So that's what? Little over 4% increase?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. But are they, keeping pace with the industry, or are they exceeding it? What do you think?
That's a great question. One we should definitely keep in mind as we go through all this, but for now it seems like they're doing pretty well. And, they even pulled in 1,482.51 million rupees in just the first 9 months of this current fiscal year.
Oh, wow.
So they're on track for another solid year.
It seems like it. But revenue is just one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What about their actual profitability?
You're right. We got to look at their EBITDA margins. That tells us how profitable their core business is.
Okay. So, before all the other stuff gets taken out,
Yeah.
interest and taxes and all that.
Exactly. So for Mamata Machinery,
Yeah.
there have been some ups and downs. Back in fiscal year 2022, their margin was pretty good, 15.57%, but it dipped to 11.82% in 23.
Okay, so that's a noticeable drop. What do you think caused that?
We need to look a little deeper, but it could be rising costs. Things are getting more expensive.
For sure. And we'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah, definitely. But there's some good news. For those 9 months leading up to December 2023, their EBITDA margin climbed back up to 14.04%.
Oh, so maybe they're recovering a bit.
Could be. Now, what about their profit after all the expenses are paid? How has that been trending?
Yeah, the actual bottom line, what's that looking like?
That's their payday, profit after tax, and it's been kind of a roller coaster. Fiscal 2021, they recorded a payday of 374.98 million rupees. But then in fiscal 2022, it plummeted to just 46.42 million rupees.
Whoa, that's a huge drop. What happened?
Right. It's hard to say without more info. Maybe some one-time expenses or their tax situation changed. But the good news is their PT bounced back in fiscal year 2023, reached 225.05 million rupees.
So yeah, a little volatile, but
Yeah.
ending on a high note. But profitability isn't the only thing, right? What about their cash flow?
Totally agree. Cash flow tells us the real story. How much cash are they actually generating from what they're doing?
So are they, making it rain? Or are they barely staying afloat?
Well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. In fiscal 2021 and 2022, they had positive cash flow from operations, brought in 70.96 million and the 19.05 million rupees, respectively.
Because that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does. But then in fiscal 2023, they actually used 6.57 million rupees in cash from operations.
Oh, so it went from positive to negative.
Yep. Could be a few reasons for that.
Like what?
Are they investing a ton in new equipment or
Yeah.
expanding? Or maybe they're having trouble collecting payments. These are all things we need to figure out.
We do. Okay, so let's shift gears for a sec.
Yeah.
What about Mamata's, position in the market? Who are
Right.
they up against? Who are their competitors?
This is where things get interesting. They're going up against some big players. Think Uflex, Nichrome, SmartPack India.
Wow, those are some big names.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does Mamata even compete with companies like that?
Well, remember how we talked about their global reach? That gives them a much bigger pool of customers than some of the smaller companies.
Ah, I see.
And it's not just about selling the machines. They offer these complete solutions.
Oh, right. So the whole package.
Yeah, they provide expertise, support throughout the process. That helps them stand out. But, it's not all sunshine and roses. They do have some weaknesses.
Such as?
But relying so heavily on the FMCG industry, that can be risky.
Yeah, what if that industry, takes a dip?
Exactly. And another challenge is pricing pressure. Customers always want the best deal, so it's a constant balancing act for Mata to stay profitable but also be competitive.
I can imagine. Okay, let's talk about this IPO specifically. How much money are they actually trapped to raise?
The exact issue size. That's not totally clear from the documents you sent.
Okay.
But what we do know is they're using this thing called a book building process to set the share price.
So basically, the price depends on how much demand there is from investors. If everyone's really excited about Mamata,
The price goes up. Yep.
gotcha. So what do we know about the price?
We have the floor price, and the cap price gives us a possible range.
All right.
The floor price is set at times the face value, which is 10 rupees per share.
Okay, and the cap price.
That's set at times the face value. So it's a pretty wide range.
Right.
Which is why it's even more important to understand their plans, what they want to do with all this money they're raising.
Exactly. What are their plans?
Big plans. The main thing is they want to expand their manufacturing.
Okay, that makes sense if they're, expecting to keep growing like this.
Right. They already have facilities in Gujarat and the U.S., but it seems like they want to really scale up.
Wow, maybe even build new factories.
Yeah, potentially. Or maybe upgrade what they have.
Okay, so that's one thing. Anything else?
Definitely. They're also really focusing on product innovation.
Interesting. What does that even mean?
Well, they're developing new lines of machines. They've got these VegaPack M-series machines specifically made for higher speed, smaller footprint, faster changeovers. They're trying to adapt to what their customers need.
Smart. So staying ahead of the curve, basically.
Exactly. And they want to expand their global reach even more.
Oh, even more. So they're going into new markets.
You got it. It's a big part of their strategy. They're aiming to strengthen their international sales network, tap into new places.
Wow, sounds ambitious. But as with any company, there's got to be some risks.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges they're facing?
One big one is customer concentration. They rely a lot on just a small number of big clients.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, their top 5 customers make up 21.39% of their revenue. And then the top 10, it's 31.69%.
So that's a pretty big chunk. What if, one of those big companies decides to go with someone else?
Exactly, could really impact their revenue. Another risk is raw material costs. Everything seems to be getting more expensive these days.
And that directly affects, their profits, right?
For sure. Their raw material costs have already jumped up, and that could squeeze their profit margins even more.
Oof. So yeah, managing those costs is going to be super important.
It's crucial. Oh, and another thing, finding and keeping skilled workers. It's always a challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially with a company like this.
Totally. Their employee attrition rate has been bouncing around between 3.03% and 9.60% in recent years.
So yeah, they got to keep their employees happy.
Definitely. And of course, there's the competition. Those big players we talked about, they're not just sitting around.
Right. It's a tough industry.
It is. Mamata's got to stay innovative, stay agile to hold their ground.
Makes sense. Okay, we talked a lot about, the business side of things. Let's talk about the people behind it all. Who's running the show at Mamata?
Well, at the top, you've got Mahendra Patel. He's the chairman and managing director. He's been there since the very beginning, founded the company back in 1989.
Wow, so he's seen it all.
He has. And alongside him is Chandrakant Patel, the joint managing director. They've both got tons of experience, super involved in everything that's going on.
Sounds like a strong leadership team. What about, like, their governance structure? You know, how do they make sure everything's transparent and they're accountable?
Well, their board has independent directors, so there are different perspectives there. And they've got a bunch of committees, like an audit committee, a corporate social responsibility committee.
Oh, so it sounds like they take governance seriously.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something earlier about a connection to a climate research center.
Yeah, that's interesting. It turns out one of the promoters also owns the Indian Center for Climate and Societal Impacts Research.
Okay, that's kind of a weird link.
It is. We don't know the exact connection, but it definitely makes you curious.
It does.
Yeah.
And it brings up a really important question for any company in the packaging industry these days: sustainability.
Huge topic.
Yeah, we've been talking about how Mamata's made a lot of money from plastic packaging. But, you know, single-use plastics are getting a lot of bad press these days.
Yeah, they're facing some real scrutiny.
So how are they adapting to this whole, like, eco-conscious world?
That's the question, isn't it? And to answer it, we need to understand the big picture. Like, what's driving this push for sustainable packaging in the first place?
Right. So let's take a step back. What's changing?
I think consumer awareness is a big part of it. People are more aware now than ever before about the impact of, like, their choices, what they buy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they're demanding more sustainable options.
We see that everywhere. Reusable bags, paper packaging, things like that.
Exactly. And it's not just a trend, it's being backed up by regulations.
Also, governments are getting involved.
They are. All over the world, we're seeing stricter policies to reduce plastic waste.
So it's both consumers and governments pushing for change.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting for Mamata. They can't ignore this. They have to change with the times.
So are they doomed? Like, is their business going to disappear as the world moves away from plastic?
I wouldn't say that. Remember, their specialty is flexible packaging machinery. And that flexibility could be a real advantage for them.
I'm not sure I follow. How can a company that's all about plastic packaging, how can they thrive in a world that's, like, turning against plastic?
Think about it this way. The demand for sustainable packaging, it's pushing innovation.
Oh, wow.
We're seeing all these new materials being developed, biodegradable plastics, plant-based films,
Oh, interesting.
even new paper and fiber-based options.
So it's not about getting rid of plastic altogether, it's about finding better alternatives.
Exactly. And the key here is that a lot of these new materials, you can still process them using flexible packaging machinery.
Really? So Mamata's machines can adapt?
In a lot of cases, yes. So they can actually help companies package their products in a more sustainable way using these innovative materials.
That sounds like a good opportunity for them.
It's a huge opportunity. The question is, are they taking advantage of it?
Right. Are they actually doing it?
Well, from what we can tell, they seem to be moving in the right direction. They're really highlighting their ability to work with different materials. And those new machines we talked about, the VegaPack models, those are designed to be more versatile.
So they're saying, hey, we're not just a plastic company. We can do other stuff too.
Exactly. But it's not just about the machines. It's also about the expertise they offer.
Yeah.
That whole end-to-end solution approach, it can help companies navigate this transition to new materials. It can be confusing, overwhelming.
For sure. But I'm guessing there are other companies doing the same thing. It's not like Mamata is the only one who's figured this out, right?
Definitely not. Sustainability is like the hottest topic in every industry these days, and packaging is no exception. Their competitors, Uflex, Nichrome, they're all pushing their eco-friendly solutions too.
So it's a race, basically.
It is. Which brings us back to Mamata's growth strategy.
Okay, and how does sustainability fit into that? Like their plans for expansion and all that?
Well, think about their focus on expanding their capacity. They're going to need to be able to produce more machines that can handle all these new materials.
Right, that makes sense. And all that innovation they're talking about, that's probably about making machines that are, like, even more versatile and efficient.
You're getting it. And going into new markets, well, different regions have different rules and preferences when it comes to packaging.
So they got to adapt to all that.
Exactly. Expanding into those new markets could help them tailor their offerings to, like, specific sustainability needs in those areas.
It's all starting to come together, so it sounds like Mamata's doing the right things. But I got to ask, is this all just like a marketing ploy? Are they really committed to this, or are they just trying to cash in on the trend?
That's the million-dollar question, right? They need to prove that they're serious about this. It has to be part of their core values, their
To
operations,
everything they do.
everything. And that might mean making some tough choices.
Like what?
Well, they might need to shift away from certain types of plastic packaging, the ones that are particularly bad, even if they're making money from them now.
Yeah, that's tough.
It
Yeah.
is. But it could be the key to their success in the long run.
Okay, so we've established that Mamata's got both a challenge and an opportunity when it comes to sustainability. But let's talk about the bigger picture for a minute. Like, what does the future of packaging even look like? And where does Mamata fit into all of that?
That's a great question, and it's a tough one to answer. But I think we need to consider the whole packaging life cycle, not just the materials, but everything.
Okay, break that down for me.
So it starts with the raw materials. Where are they coming from? Are they sourcing them responsibly? Sustainably harvested paper, bio-based plastics, things like that.
Right, right.
And then there's the manufacturing process itself. How much energy are they using? What about waste? Are they minimizing that?
Okay, so they got to be efficient.
Yep. And then, of course, what happens to the packaging after it's used? Is it recyclable? Can you compost it? Does it biodegrade?
Right, so it's the whole life cycle of the packaging.
Exactly. These are all crucial things to think about. And then there's this whole idea of reducing packaging altogether.
Wait, packaging less? Isn't that like the opposite of what a packaging company should be doing?
It sounds counterintuitive, but that's where innovation comes in. We're seeing things like concentrated products, refill systems, even whole new business models built around reusable packaging.
It's about rethinking the whole concept.
It is. And companies like Mamata, they can actually play a big role in this. They can
Right.
be part of developing the machines and the systems that make these new solutions possible.
So it's a time of, like, transition, both for Mamata and for the whole packaging industry.
Really, it's a dynamic time full of challenges and opportunity.
For sure. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet, the investors.
The people who are thinking about putting their money into this company.
Exactly. So how should they be thinking about this IPO, given everything we've talked about, especially all this stuff about sustainability?
That's the million rupee question, right? And to answer it, we need to dig a little deeper. What are the risks? What are the rewards? What questions should investors be asking? And how can they figure out if Mamata is truly committed to a sustainable future? All that next time.
That's all coming up in part 2 of our deep dives. Stick around.
All right, we're back. We're talking all things Mamata Machinery, the company behind those pouches you see, everywhere.
Yeah, and remember, we left off talking about sustainability. It's a big deal.
It is. We talked about their business and their impressive growth, but how are they handling this whole shift towards, eco-conscious packaging? It's a critical question for anyone who's thinking about investing. To really answer it, we got to understand what's going on in the whole packaging industry.
Okay, so, the big picture.
Exactly. What's driving this push for more sustainable options in the first place?
Yeah, let's zoom out for a minute.
So consumer awareness is a huge factor. People are way more informed now about the impact of their choices.
Yeah, for sure.
And they want sustainable stuff. They're demanding it.
Like reusable bags and all that paper packaging we're seeing now.
Exactly. And it's not just a fad or something. It's backed up by actual regulation.
Oh, so governments are getting involved too.
Big time. Around the world, you see governments enacting stricter policies to reduce plastic waste.
So it's a combo of consumers and governments pushing the industry in a new direction.
Yep, that's exactly it. And that's where it gets interesting for Mamata. They can't ignore this. They got to adapt.
So are they, going to become obsolete?
Yeah.
As the world moves away from plastic,
Mm-hmm.
is their business just going to vanish?
Not necessarily. Remember, they specialize in flexible packaging machinery. And that flexibility could actually be a strength in this whole evolving landscape.
Not sure I get it. How can a company that's, so focused on plastic packaging, how can they succeed in a world that's trying to get rid of plastic?
Okay, think of it like this. The demand for sustainable packaging, it's driving a ton of innovation.
Okay, so, new stuff is being invented.
Yeah, all these new materials are being developed, biodegradable plastics, plant-based films,
Interesting.
even new options that are made from paper and fiber.
So it's not about, eliminating plastic completely. It's about finding better alternatives, better ways to do it.
You got it. And a lot of these new materials, guess what? They can be processed using flexible packaging machinery.
So Mamata's machines can adapt.
In many cases, yeah. Which means they can actually help companies be more sustainable. They can help them package their products in a better way using these new innovative materials.
Okay, so that's a huge opportunity for them.
It really is. Are they actually taking advantage of it? That's the big question.
Yeah, are they just talking the talk or are they walking the walk?
Well, it seems like they are making moves in the right direction. They're really emphasizing how they can work with all sorts of materials, not just plastic. And those new VegaPack models we were talking about, they're built for versatility. They can handle different stuff.
So they're trying to position themselves as like a partner for companies that want to be more sustainable.
Yeah, a partner in the transition.
But I'm sure there are other companies out there doing the same thing. It's a crowded space, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Everyone's talking about sustainability these days. It's like the buzzword of the century. And Mamata's competitors, like Uflex and Nichrome, they're also offering their own eco-friendly solutions.
So it's really a race to see who can innovate the fastest and adapt to all these changes.
It really is. Which brings us right back to Mamata's growth strategy. Where does sustainability fit into all their plans for expansion and all that?
Well, they're really focused on expanding their capacity, right? So maybe that's part of it. Like, they'll need more space and more machines to be able to produce all these different types of packaging machines.
Exactly. They're thinking ahead. And all that innovation they're talking about, that's probably about developing machines that can handle these new sustainable materials.
Makes sense. And going into new markets, well, that could be part of it too, right? Because different countries have different rules about packaging and different consumer preferences.
Absolutely. Expanding globally could let them tailor what they offer to meet those specific needs in each market.
Okay, so it's all starting to connect. It sounds like they're on the right track, but, got to be a skeptic here. Is this all just marketing? Are they truly committed to sustainability? Or are they just trying to capitalize on a trend?
That's the real question, right? They need to show that they're serious. Sustainability has to be part of, like, their DNA. It has to be embedded in everything they do.
Their values, their operations, the whole thing.
Everything. And that might mean some tough decisions.
Like maybe they have to give up some products that are profitable, but not so good for the environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a tough call, but it could make all the difference for their future success.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and the opportunities for Mamata when it comes to sustainability. But let's zoom out even further. Like, what does the future of packaging even look like?
Yeah.
And where does Mamata fit into that big picture?
That's a fascinating question, isn't it? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think we need to think about the entire packaging life cycle from start to finish, not just the materials.
Okay, what does that mean? The whole life cycle?
Well, it starts with the raw materials. Where are they coming from? Are they being sourced responsibly, sustainably harvested paper, bio-based plastics, things like that?
Okay, so like ethical sourcing, basically. Right?
Exactly. And then you got to think about the manufacturing process itself. How much energy are they using? How much waste are they generating? Are they doing everything they can to minimize their impact? And then, of course, what happens to the packaging at the end of its life? Is it recyclable? Can you compost it? Does it biodegrade?
Right, so it's not just about what it's made of, it's about what happens to it after it's used.
Exactly. All these things are crucial. And then there's this whole other idea that's starting to gain traction, reducing packaging altogether.
Whoa, wait a minute. Packaging less? That seems kind of counterintuitive for a company that's like in the business of packaging.
I know, right? But that's where innovation comes in. We're seeing things like concentrated products, refill systems. Even some companies are trying out new business models that are built around reusable packaging.
So it's like a whole new way of thinking about packaging.
It is. And companies like Mamata, they could actually play a really big role in this. They could help develop the machines and the systems that make these new solutions possible.
So they're not just making packaging, they're shaping the future of packaging.
Exactly. It's a time of transition, both for Mamata and for the whole industry.
A lot of change is happening.
A ton of challenges, but also a ton of opportunities. But there's one more piece of this whole puzzle we need to talk about, the investors.
Right, the people who are deciding whether or not to buy into this IPO.
Exactly. How should they be thinking about this, given everything we've talked about? Especially all this stuff about sustainability.
Yeah, that's the big question. It's more than just the numbers, right? It's about understanding the company, their potential, the risks, their value.
It's about figuring out if their vision for the future aligns with your vision for the future. That's what we'll be digging into next.
All that coming up in part 3 of our deep dive into Mamata Machinery. Stay tuned.
Ha! All right, welcome back to the show. We've been on this deep dive with Mamata Machinery, looking at their business, their financials, and how they're dealing with all those sustainability challenges that are facing the whole packaging industry.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, but now it's decision time.
Right, time to figure out what this all means for investors. How do you make a smart decision about this IPO?
That's what we're here for. Everyone wants to know if it's worth investing. And it's more than just, the numbers.
It is.
It's understanding the company, the risks, the potential. It's a lot to consider.
It is. And if sustainability is important to you, then you really need to think about how committed Mamata is to that. You got to do your research.
Exactly. So, what are some of the key questions that investors should be asking? Where do we even begin?
I think it starts with transparency. How open is Mamata about their environmental impact? Do they actually disclose their carbon footprint, what they're doing about waste management? Are they setting clear targets for reducing their impact? Are those targets ambitious enough?
Right, right. Because it's one thing to say you're committed to sustainability, but are they actually doing it? Are they walking the walk?
Exactly. You got to look for concrete actions. Are they holding themselves accountable? It's about results, not just intentions.
Totally agree. What about their products?
Yeah.
Are they actually putting money into research and development for sustainable solutions?
That's a huge one. Are they moving beyond just conventional plastics? Are they exploring bio-based materials, compostable options? Are they working with other companies that are developing new technologies? That's what you want to see.
So we're looking for signs that they're not just sticking with the old ways, but actually innovating, looking ahead.
Yeah, you got it. Another thing to consider is their customers. Who are they working with? Are these companies that are known for their own sustainability practices?
Because if Mamber's clients are prioritizing eco-friendly packaging, that's a good sign for the future, right?
Absolutely. It shows that they're aligned with the direction the industry is moving in. And don't forget about their supply chain. Where are they getting their materials from? Are those sources responsible? Are they ethical? Do they care about the environment? It's all connected.
So investors need to do a deep dive on Mamata's sustainability story.
Definitely. Just like they would with their financials. A company's long-term success, it's tied to their environmental and social impact.
For sure. Okay, let's be real for a minute. Transitioning to a more sustainable business model, that can be expensive. There are risks, right?
Absolutely. The demand for traditional plastic packaging could drop faster than they expect. New materials and technologies can be pricey. And, there's always a chance that their sustainability efforts just don't connect with consumers or investors. They might not care.
Yeah, those are all valid points. But on the flip side, what about the potential rewards? The companies that do this right, the ones that actually get sustainability right, they stand to gain a lot, don't they?
Oh, totally. They can get a real competitive advantage, attract loyal customers, maybe even charge a premium for their products.
And investors, they're starting to notice this too, right?
They are. We're seeing this trend where investors want their money to do good, to support companies that are making a positive impact. They're looking for strong ESG credentials.
Okay, so even though there are risks, there's also a lot of potential upside.
Yep. It all comes down to your own assessment of Mamata Machinery.
So you have to weigh those risks and rewards, ask those tough questions, and decide if this IPO fits with your investment goals and what you believe in.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about investing in a company that you think is doing the right things, that's building a better future.
Exactly. That's what makes all this so interesting. It's not just about analyzing a company. It's about the bigger picture. It's about how business and sustainability and the role of investors, how that's all shaping the world we want to live in.
Well said. So bottom line, when you're thinking about this Mamata IPO, do your homework, think critically, and make a decision that's right for you.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Mamata Machinery. We hope this has given you everything you need to know to make a smart decision.
Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So use it wisely.
And thanks for joining us.